Hey guys, welcome back. Thought this would be an interesting topic for today. A single stage versus a progressive for precision rifle reloading. So this is actually the second press I had. The first one was one of those Lee Classic presses, the whole kit. I think I got that in 2011 or something, maybe 2010. Either way, that one, I think it went into the trash about a month after I got it. I think I jacked up the threads or something with it. It was not a good press. So stepping up to the rock chucker was a big deal for me. And I've used this press for, what would it be, 10, 11 years now. So pretty familiar with it. I really like it. I've loaded a lot of ammo on here. Now, the issue with a single stage is it's slow. That's about the only issue with it. If you are pumping out some hunting ammo, maybe once a year, this is just fine. This is a great press. If you're shooting quite a bit of precision rifle, I would consider looking at something else. And let's kind of talk about that. What the capabilities are of this press versus something like a progressive. So to begin with, when I started to realize that I needed something faster, was actually about the same time as I got the this inline fabrication case ejection system. I like it. It's fast. It pretty much will cut off probably 4 to 6 seconds every case. So however much you need to do, it'll cut off a lot. I started noticing that I needed more because I started adding processes. I started separating out each process. Of course, your standard die will have your decapping, your resizing, and then your expander ball that gets pulled through there. And that's not a terrible way to go for a certain level of accuracy. But if you want to step it up a little bit and have a bit more consistency and even less trimming, which we all hate, it might be good to look at a progressive because you're breaking apart each one of those processes. What I have been doing is decapping with one stage, and then I'll go to my resizing die. If possible, you want like a Type S, something with a bushing in it. So you hit that with the resizing die, have that thing gutted so it's just resizing, and then what you want to do is go over to your mandrel die. The reason being is that each one of those has its own center. So when you're decapping and your decapping pin goes into your flash hole, it can pull off your center and cause concentricity issues with the rest of your die. So a lot of guys will separate out their decapping for that reason. Your expander ball, of course, that is pulling out. It goes inside your case, the case gets closed around it, and then your expander ball gets pulled out, and it'll actually elongate your cases and also cause concentricity issues. If you can go to a mandrel, your forces are all going down. They're all very concentric because the mandrel is actually floating, keeps trimming down, and also uniforms the inside of your case so that your neck tension is uniform and consistent case to case. With that being said, when you start running a piece of brass through and getting decapped, resized, and mandreled, each one of those steps means handling that brass, and it also means time. If you don't have this kit, it can go very slow. You're changing dies, you're touching that brass. I mean, I guess it'd be probably 6, 7 times by the time you're all done. And it just means time, and it's a lot of wasted time, especially when you can be with your family. The only thing I do use this press for now, I still have my 7 mag set up for this press, so that'll probably be on here, but I haven't loaded that in quite a while. But mostly what I do is the bulk, like military brass prep. So I'll throw my 223 die in here, and I'll just run a bunch of 223, 556 through it. And that's super fast. The nice thing about this system is that your hand never has to leave the handle, and your other hand can be feeding the machine. Whereas with your progressive, in my case it's a Dillion 550, the case is always going in using the same hand that you're running the handle with. So you have to stop the operation, grab a piece of brass, and throw it in. I'll just show you. I broke my decapping pin on my 223 die, so this is just a decapping die. But I'll show you kind of the speed of it all. You can pretty much feed it as fast as the cases will come out. So it goes pretty quick. If I do all that, then I take it over, trim it, chamfer out the primer pockets, and they're good to go. But when you don't need to trim and you don't need to do any swaging or chamfering or anything like that, it's nice just to throw it right on the Dillion. And I'll kind of walk you through how that looks. Alright, well, before we jump right into the progressive, I think it's worth noting the turret press. A lot of people like to step to the turret press because it's basically a single stage press, but you have all your dies already on the press, so you're not changing dies between operations. The way they're designed to run is that you put one case in, you don't touch that case until it's finished, and you rotate your turret around. Of course, you can use it as a single stage, run all your brass through, and then change your die and then run your brass through again. And that's not bad. It does mean that you are pulling the handle for every case and for every operation. So you're pulling the handle and you're also spinning your turret. It is a step up from the single stage, but I don't think it's as big as you'd like to think. I guess into the progressive, if you're anything like me, you do a ton of research before you go buying anything. This was no exception. I went with the 550. The 750 isn't much more. I got this one at, I can't remember, I think it was $475. So $475 for the press. The reason I went with the 550, well, you do have a little bit more control with the 550, and that's okay. I mean, you have to manually index the shell plate. You can back it up, you can run it, you can check the case. It's not going to advance on you. So I guess that's kind of handy. Really, the big thing for me that I kind of spotted right away was a lot of the guys recommending the 750 were dedicated competition shooters. They are dedicated to usually one caliber. So caliber changeovers weren't really factored in, where I might go shoot 400 rounds of 5.56 and then swap it over to the 6.5 and then swap it over to the Valkyrie and just kind of play with things. This is nice for that. It's super simple. The conversions are cheap, and it's not hard to do. The main issues I see that people are talking about is just consistency. Usually they're throwing powder on their press, and while it's not bad to throw powder for bulk loading, obviously you want to weigh out your charges for precision rifle. Some guys will use a ball powder like CFE or 6.5 stay ball and they'll be okay. But I wanted to keep using the powder that I'm using. So what I did was got the Area 419 funnel kit. It's a really nice funnel. I don't know if you call it serrations, the ridges in there. Help that powder to align itself to fall in. The drop tube gets it nicely above all your dies, especially if you have a micrometer. I don't really use micrometers. I might in the future, but yeah, no bridging issues because all the powder's all kind of aligned as it's falling in there. Pretty much just set it up so that the case lifts it up and you know that it's making good contact. But it does use the standard Dillion powder die, so that's a big upgrade. I use 2 Charge Masters in conjunction with this. Compared to 2 Charge Masters, they're running right alongside each other just fine. The downside, I'd say, as far as powdering goes, is when I had 1 Charge Master, I would find myself sitting there waiting. It would usually be about 15 seconds, but for somebody who needs to be moving, needs to be hands-on, or else my mind goes elsewhere, it kind of bit me. I'd find that I'd dump a lot of powder while the RAM was down. So I'd have the RAM down, powder everywhere, and it gets in all the nooks and crannies of the press, which sucks. I need to get some canned air or something just to have on hand. So having 2 Charge Masters I'd find that as soon as I'd advance the next one of the Charge Master would be ready. You just dump that, and you get a pretty good rhythm, and I found that knocks out ammo crazy fast. You're pretty much only limited by the Charge Masters at that point. So powdering, not really a big deal. If you're doing precision rifle, you just take a little bit more time. You don't have to. I've seen some people say that they'll throw with the powder measure, take it off, dump it into a pan, and trickle up. I think that's just kind of ridiculous. That kind of eliminates the whole need for progressive press. I guess I'll just work my way down. The next thing is these Armanov tool heads. I'll pull one up for you. I guess I'll first start with the factory Dillion ones. So, let's see if I can get it to focus. This is the 223-556 tool head I've got, and they come with these standard pins. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, it's just a pin. They just drop in. The whole tool head is designed to float, so when it's in the press, you can shake the whole thing. And that is necessary. That floating takes out all the slop that you might find in a progressive. The downside of that is that when you have some excessive force like sizing or even seating a bullet, that tool head will automatically float the direction of the most force. Or you're starting to cycle out and you only have a piece of brass in your seating, and then suddenly that one's different. So these tool heads aren't ideal. They work, they will load ammo, and you can shoot that ammo. That's why I have it on the 5.56. Good for blasting. The Armanov tool heads, let me see, this one's probably set up the best. You can see with the size or the seating die, the Armanov tool head actually has screws, machine screws. They're a 2.5 millimeter Allen key, but it's actually threaded. They're pretty small, but they do suck that tool head up into the top of this channel in the 550. And what that does is it locks the tool head, and then you get your slop out of each individual die. So each individual die has a lock ring that, okay, I have one over here. It has a lock ring, and you can see on that lock ring there's a screw right there. That screw is for setting where your lock ring sits, but it actually doesn't touch. It doesn't touch, so it allows for quite a bit of play in each die. So each die self-centers itself rather than the entire tool head. So that pretty much removes all your concentricity issues. You'll notice that these other tool heads aren't set up that well. I need to get more mandrel dies and more decapping dies, just so I'm not switching things around. But yeah, this one right here for 224 Valkyrie is set up with resizing die, decapping die, or just resizing type S with the decapping pin still in it. And then I have a cedar die. So with my Valkyrie, it's more plinking ammo than anything. So it's not like high value to me. I'm not putting a lot of money into it anyway. So I'd rather just have that done fast. So lube them, put them in, out the other side comes out loaded ammo. It's great. Tool heads, that's a major consideration. You need to factor that in. These tool heads aren't much more expensive than factory Dillion ones. I think they're $2 more. They take a few weeks to get here, but the rings I think are $15, and yeah, so I'd just put it in big order, get quite a few of them. They're well worth it. Moving down, I think the next factor is the shell holder, shell plate. If you listen to people like F-Class John and Eric Cortina, F-Class John has mentioned people honing the bottom of your shell plate. So that'd be putting it on like a 400 grit sandpaper and just kind of rubbing it on maybe like a sheet of glass, something really flat, to get the bottom of that shell plate nice and flat. That never really made sense to me, why somebody would want to do that. And then I heard a podcast with Just F and Send It with Eric Cortina, and he talks about his 750. It would have probably, I think he said 5 or 6 thousandths difference between each slot in his shell plate. So he actually marked his shell plate and then tested to see which slot had a different seating depth, and they were all varying 5 to 6 thousandths, I guess. That kind of intrigued me. I took that and ran the exact same test. I put a paint pen dot on what I called number 1, and I just wrote down on a sheet 1, 2, 3, 4, and each slot I had the measurement from base to ogive. Now, at the end of that test, I was kind of confused because it was perfect. There's no issues, nothing outside of what you normally see in match bullets. So I did some looking, pulled up the image of the 750 shell plate, and the shell plate itself is a lot like your single stage shell plate, so that, or shell holder. It actually completely encapsulates the bottom of the case head, and your case head indexes off of that specific slot. On the shell plates for the 550, what you'll notice is that your case slides in, but it is actually indexing. Let's see if I can get that. It's not sitting in there where your case is getting pushed by a shell plate. It's actually getting pushed by that spot on the ram. Oh man, I can't get it to focus. So it's sitting in there like this. Maybe if I try to stand in front of it. It's sitting in there just like that. So you're actually, with the 550, you're actually better off because you're indexing on the exact same spot on the ram every single time, rather than indexing off the shell plate. So I really like that about these. With those other guys, what they're doing is they're actually taking their bullet seating and they back it out quite a bit, and they, they'll go 15 thousandths or whatever above where they want to be, and they'll actually seat on an arbor press or just a different press to finish off their ammo. We're not doing that. I mean, we're just making quality ammo, going and shooting it. We're not going to be shooting 1 MOA 10 rings. So yeah, so this thing I feel like will produce just as good an ammo, because I mean, why wouldn't it? Everything I've looked at and tested says it will. The first lot of ammo I made off this with 6.5 was shooting quarter minute. I mean, I can't complain about that one bit. It just took the exact same load off my single stage and knocked it out through this setup. I guess I kind of went over how I do my trainer ammo or plinking ammo. The 6.5 ammo, I feel like I'm invested a little more into that. Generally, how I'll have this set up is with 2 different tool heads. So I'll have a case prep and a load. The case prep one, I'll throw in station number 1. I'll have decapping, and then I'll have my resizing, and then I'll have mandrel. Goes from there into the tumbler, or if I need to, I can trim it at that point. My second one, the loading one, I'll either throw the mandrel back into station number 1. I'm kind of playing with that idea right now. Or if I do tumble off the lube, I'll throw the decapping pin back in there. That way I don't have to go through and check flash holes for a piece of walnut or something. So I'll hit it with the decapping, and then it'll be a powder dye. It's actually the same powder dye. I just got to get more of these, but I'll throw a powder dye in there, charge it, and then I'll seat a bullet. One thing you could do, I know when I would load on my single stage, I'd run the ram up, seat the bullet, and then I'd turn the case a quarter turn, and then I'd seat it again just to help out with concentricity. With this, what you could do is actually have 2 seating dies, and that would do the same thing. You just shift it over to the next station and seat it again, and that would take out any alignment issues. Yeah, I guess next video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up some ammo, and we'll take it to the range, and I'll show you it is just as good. But as far as the theory behind a progressive, I don't think you can knock it one bit. A lot of guys are kind of fuds about it, and they say you can't load on a progressive. You can't load precision ammo on a progressive. I don't think that's true one bit. And I think that for the average shooter that has a handful of calibers, I do think the 550 is the best way to go. Yeah, let me know what you think. I'm curious to hear some of your feedback, some of your experiences. The biggest downside I found with this is that I can't incorporate my kids as much. They love to sort through brass, check flash holes, and they just like to be part of it, but it's kind of difficult to incorporate them with the progressive. Right now I am priming on the progressive. I've been kind of going into a rabbit hole on that, just studying up on what priming actually, what the operation does and what you can achieve with it. So there's all sorts of conversations out there to listen to, but the tests people have done on anvil compression and primer seating depth, and anyway, that's a whole nother story. But as of right now, I'm still going off the press, and it's just fine. So yeah, all right. Hopefully we'll see you soon.